Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Desert Farmer Podcast, episode 68. All right, if you guys have been following us along for a while, this is a topic that I honestly don't know how this will do, to be quite frank. But I know we have a few out there that have asked us a lot of questions about the farm finances, and so what we're going to do is, assuming this goes well, is start a series on farm finance. And we won't necessarily do that every week. I think we'll kind of spice it in just a little bit, but we do have a PowerPoint for you guys today. So if you're watching, you'll see a PowerPoint. If not, we're obviously going to talk right through it. So for you guys that are actually just listening in the podcast version of this in the future, don't worry about it. You're not going to miss anything. So before we get started, though, we have a couple of housekeeping notes. Housekeeping note number one would be what?
If you have a question, if you can just write the word question before you state your question, just so it stands out to me and I don't miss it, that would be great.
Yes, and Lori's obviously going to be paying attention to you guys down there, kind of a moderator to an extent, at least all we can afford in a moderator is Lori. But she'll be down there answering a few comments and things like that. But you'll be a little more engaged today because you're going to help me with this, right?
Okay.
So housekeeping note number 2 is give us a thumbs up. So if you enjoy the podcast, helps us out a lot if you'll give us a thumbs up, both now and if you guys are watching later on, that definitely helps. And it does kind of help us gauge what content you guys are liking too. So if you like this kind of content, please definitely make sure you consider doing that. Obviously, we do have, is that Pam?
Yes.
Hey, Pam. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Thanks, Pam.
You are awesome.
We didn't see you last week, but I did get your letter. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for the handwritten letter, Pam. That was awesome. So we have a lot of things to cover today. Like I said, we do have a PowerPoint for you guys. So if you guys want to do screenshots, if that's something that you guys normally do, feel free. Today's going to be kind of more of an overview, but we are going to be covering the 3 different aspects of farm finance and specifically when it comes to funding. But before we do that, I'm going to give everybody a chance to get here. We do have one highlight, right? So what's that highlight?
You want me to say it?
Yeah, you say it, because you're responsible for it.
Well, as you guys know, we are now on TikTok. We have been for probably going on a couple months now. And we actually hit 100 subscribers.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. So I don't know. We've got a few more than that here on YouTube, and probably a few more than that on Instagram and Facebook. But that one is, I am actually kind of really enjoying putting the content up there because number one, Lori's on there a lot more often. And we have found, so she tried to argue with me and say that it wouldn't matter which one of us were on there as far as who wants to see it, so how many views you get. Yeah, so we totaled up and averaged out, throwing out the top ones, who was somebody who they would prefer to see. You guys want to guess who it was? Comment real quick if you want to go ahead and guess who it was by like a lot. By a lot. Ding, 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 ding.
Was I supposed to say something?
I want to see if they get it right. I'm sure they probably will. But yeah, so spoiler alert, it's the female of the 2 people sitting in front of you. Yes, it's Lori. So they want to see Lori, I would say probably about 8 to 10 times more often than they see me, which is understandable. I prefer that as well. Don't get me wrong. The issue is this one right here is deathly afraid of the camera. So like you literally, so we were standing in the kitchen and I said, hey, you know what, sweetheart, I think we need to put something up on TikTok, and we were working on the wine. And I said, you know, I really want you to be in this. And she went immediately white. And like deer in the headlights, there's no way I could do this. She starts getting heart palpitations. And she was just being herself, and it was adorable. I loved it. So everybody did. Everybody did.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we got a good enough crew here. So any quick questions before we get into the topic of the day today?
Well, we had one from Kevin, but I just responded. He was just asking how the potted roses were holding up in the heat. Are they blooming or just surviving? And they're pretty much just surviving. And I put in here that they're struggling a bit, but I'm not watering them every day just because lack of time and
lack of commitment to your roses. So we do a better job of keeping up with all of the fruit trees and stuff.
Yeah.
A whole lot better.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of things just hanging on out there for,
hanging on for dear life.
Hanging on.
That's kind of everything. This week has been really tough as far as the weather is concerned. We haven't gotten any rain. I think you said we might have gotten sprinkles the other day or something. Nowhere near what we need. Everything is dusty outside. Everything. The trees are filthy.
So dirty.
So, but we had 2 different heavy dust storms come through. And so all it did was just make everything more miserable. So it just made everything dirty and dusty, and it is extremely dry. So everything outside is right now just trying to survive. So I think the things that seem to be doing the best, all the animals in the pole barn are doing fantastic. Mm-hmm. At this point now, we're leaving the misters on all night long, and the pigs are just loving that. The dogs wind up staying in there, so they stay nice and cool. The breezeway stays we should probably measure the temperature. I'll bet you it's a good 15 degrees or more cooler in that breezeway than it is everywhere else. So it's about 85 to 90 degrees. So everything is pretty comfortable in there. And then the cats just hang out by the house, but they're hanging in there.
Yeah.
So any other quick questions, and then we'll get to it?
Yeah, there's a couple. But Dwayne, you've got a great smile. We'd all agree. But did you see Lori and that cat climbing mouth? Enzo climbing. How adorable.
Absolutely.
It was. He is so funny because every time we go outside, he loves attention. And he likes to be picked up, and as soon as you pick him up, he immediately climbs on your shoulder.
Instantly.
And we have to carry him around, basically like, a little sack of potatoes on our shoulder, and that's how he likes to be held.
Yep. He doesn't like when you have a hat on, so he'll knock your hat off.
He pushes my hat off usually,
Yep. And he'll basically purr in your ear, and
he nuzzles your face and your neck, and
And if he's not ready to get down, and he knows you're going to try to put him down, he climbs higher up.
Yeah, he basically really hangs over your shoulder. It's like, nope, I'm not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. So okay, anything else? And we'll get to the.
Yep.
Yes.
What are the blue stones you put into the wine?
Those are just some glass, like fire pit stones that we found on Amazon. I don't remember whether we have them in the Amazon shop or not, but they're just like it's like a tempered glass. So they're obviously designed to withstand very, very high temperatures, and we put them through an acid wash before we use them in the wine, just to make sure they're nice and clean. And actually, vinegar and water is how they suggest to clean them. So, but either way, they're made out of just solid glass, and the tempering, obviously, that's not that important when it comes to wine, but we figure if it can survive super, super high heat, it's going to do fine in the wine. So that's what we do.
Are you growing dragon fruit?
We are not. So dragon fruit are more tropical, and it's cacti, but it's more of a tropical cacti. There's a pitaya is a Mexican dragon fruit. We've considered that one, and if we could find that, we may give that a shot. I think it still would struggle a little bit with some of our hard frosts, but if we were going to try one, it would probably be a pitaya instead. So.
Name the types of apple trees you have, please.
Sure. Yep. Golden Dorset, Anna, Tropic Sweet, Einsheimer, Gala, the Jersey Mac, and the Wainucci Early. Those are all of our apple trees.
So the last 3 are all fall apples, and then the first 4 are the spring summer apple.
Yeah. So the first 4 are the only ones that we would suggest growing here in Arizona. And of those 4, I would really highly encourage the Golden Dorset and the Anna. The Tropic Sweet is very good. It's hard to find. Reed's the only person that I know of in Arizona that sometimes has them. Normally he doesn't. We've lost one of those trees that got a random disease on it. And the other 2, they do okay, but they don't produce near as heavy as the Anna and the Dorset. And they are better. It's a sweeter apple, but we had some very good Annas this year.
Oh, yeah.
So
really good.
That were nice and sweet and crisp. And so I don't know that I would... that's definitely number 3. The Einsheimer, not a fan. It doesn't taste very good.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't have the same flavor that the Anna and the Dorset do. But Dorset probably is my number 1 choice. Anna number 2, Tropic Sweet number 3, Einsheimer number 4. And I wouldn't grow another apple here. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it. We haven't gotten a decent harvest off of anything else. Anything else, and we'll jump into it.
So how do you? Somebody asked how do you like the Einsheimer, but you just answered that.
Interesting apple questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a 9 Schremer last week. It didn't taste like anything.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah. So I think you can probably go into.
I'm going to kind of control the PowerPoint here, guys. So I'm going to share that with you guys. I'll do my best here. But, okay, farm finance. Today we are going to be talking about funding. So got 3 different types of funding we're going to be talking about today. The first one is the one that most people would probably be familiar with, and that is leveraging debt. So some type of loan. So what we're talking about here when it comes to funding is we're talking about how are you going to pay for the farm, at least the very beginning of the farm. So there, a farm is very, very capital expense intensive. You have a lot of capital expenses up front before you get production under most circumstances. There's some ways around that, but we're going to make the assumption that you are starting today, or maybe you're starting 20 years ago, but trying to figure out what you could use in order to fund a homestead or a farm of any size. It doesn't matter. Size doesn't make a difference, and where you're located won't make a difference. So none of these will make a difference as far as that's concerned. But when it comes to the first one that most of us would recognize, it would definitely be debt, so some type of loan. So have this broken down in basically some pros and cons. So when it comes to debt, so looking at some type of loan, it is definitely the quickest and fastest route to cash. So of the things that we're going to be talking about today, debt would definitely be the thing that you can go to and get funding the quickest. Mm-hmm. So obviously when it comes to debt, there are a few different options, but the access to debt, you're looking at a couple different things. For us, what we've used in the past is we've used a HELOC. That is a home equity line of credit. If you have equity in your home, usually it's fairly easy to get a HELOC. Or you could go a more complicated route looking at personal loans and things like that. Another thing to consider when it comes to debt, obviously credit. So it's going to require some type of positive credit in order for you to qualify for debt. And obviously that's different for everybody. I would hope that most people that are trying to start a farm do not have a tremendous amount of debt. I don't know that that's a good place to start if you already are in a lot of debt and you're struggling with debt. I don't know that starting a farm venture, whether that's a homestead where it's kind of a hobby, or if it's something that you're looking to make some cash on, I don't know that that's a good start if debt is an issue for you. But if you're going to use it to leverage, especially the startup expense, debt is an option, and it will require some credit. Some things to consider, obviously, it's a limited amount, so you don't have an unlimited amount of cash when it comes to leveraging debt. It's going to obviously be based on the amount that you are approved for, and there is definitely some risk. And so obviously whenever you're taking on debt, you have the chance that you may not be able to make payments. What's up?
So Michael, I'm lost totally.
You're lost?
He's totally lost with what you're talking about.
Okay, well hang in there. Is that Misco?
Yeah.
Okay, hang in there, Misco. We'll kind of put it all together here in just a minute. So risk will be an issue, obviously, when you're talking about debt. Assuming that you're doing this from funding this as far as a venture, like a farm venture, or it's a business, you have the possibility of default if you can't make your payments, and you could literally lose the farm. So when they talk about losing the farm, you could literally lose it for real if you default on the loan. And then last of all, cost. So when you're looking at these different ways of funding a farming venture, the debt route is definitely going to be your most expensive, because on top of the very expensive capital expenses that you have potentially with a farm, you are paying interest on those things. So depending on how long, what the interest rate might be, some of these, like a HELOC, for example, is an adjustable interest rate. So when we were first fiddling around with a HELOC, which was 10 years ago, we were in a low interest rate environment, and so the HELOC itself was relatively low. Today, those are much higher, so the interest expense is a lot higher. So when you're looking at these 3 different ways of funding a farming venture, debt would be your most expensive route, because you are going to be paying interest on top of that until you pay the loan back. So go ahead. Were you going to say
So I was
something?
just gonna say maybe kind of like recap, like briefly recap.
Yeah, so a quick
Debt.
recap here, and that's just my line to know I'm done. But just when you're talking about debt, it is the quickest route to funding. Again, we're talking about funding here, so how you're getting the money to start your farm. Can be fairly easy to access, assuming you own your home, or it can be complicated with personal loans. You could use credit cards, things like that. It does require some credit, so if you have a bad credit score, this can be a real challenge because you may not be able to qualify for it. It is limited, so the amount of money that you would have access to is going to be limited to the approval process, so what you get approved for. There is definitely some risk here. So out of the 3 different types of funding, this is the riskiest by far. You have the chance of default and you could literally lose the farm. And then the cost. So this will be the highest overall cost, and that's because of your interest expense. And these days that interest expense can be pretty significant. So before we get into the next one, is there anything else that you wanted to mention on debt? Taking on debt for the farm?
No, I went blank. There
Okay.
was something I was like, okay, I got to say that, but then now I'm done. Nope, I'm good.
That's okay. So
I
we're
like
gonna.
went blank. I was trying to just figure out how also to like explain it, like.
Okay,
That's okay.
We'll bring it all together here in a second.
Okay.
So next thing would be grants. Now these are going to be your lowest cost. In fact, these can actually be free. I don't have any resources in today's podcast or notes. If I can remember, I'll leave some links for you guys. If not, and you want me to kind of direct you a bit, I can. But a Google search is pretty easy. So if you go, farm startup. So go into Google, type in farm startup grants. You'll see right away. You've got farmers.gov, USDA.gov. Both of those are going to be good options. You can kind of see what grants are available to people. The Arizona Department of Agriculture, I don't know what they have, but we have a contact there. So we can get some of those resources, but they're fairly limited, at least that I'm aware of here in Arizona. And when you're talking about grants, access, it is limited to government funds. Now, there may be some private funds out there that I'm not aware of, but generally speaking, it is limited to the government. And so these are federal funds through the USDA or any local funds that may be available to you through the ADA, the Arizona Department of Agriculture, who we are most involved with. With this, you will have some restrictions. So these are going to have to be used for specific projects. For example, there's fencing grants that are available from time to time based on whether or not you qualify. But there are restrictions on these funds. So while they can basically be free, or it pays maybe for a portion of these different things, there are restrictions. And you have to follow those restrictions and use the funds for what that grant was given to you for. Government, you guys may or may not know my love of having the government involved with everything that I do. And you're flicking your fingers at me.
Well, because you're just leaving it on the screen.
Yeah, I was going to leave this up for just a second.
Okay,
yeah, good. And then limited amount. So based on the project and the percentage approved, it's going to be a limited amount of funds that are available to you with grants. Now, most of the grants are going to be, at least here in Arizona, will be predominantly around things like fencing. So I know when we looked at these briefly, it was for fencing. And it can be for any of the types of fencing that you might use. And if you've got a lot of land, fencing may come up. But I don't remember whether or not there's any options for irrigation. I think there was some, but I don't know whether or not we have them available to us here in Arizona. I think it's more large-scale agriculture that these are for. And they're really kind of geared towards that. You'll see that the USDA is not involved in our lives at all here in Arizona with the farm that we run here. And the only connection that we have to the USDA is through our meat programs, because we have a USDA option, finally again, for our beef. But other than that, we don't have any involvement by the USDA. So, but grants are an option. So I think the biggest thing with that is it is going to be very limited. That's probably the biggest drawback to it. And you have to use the funds specifically for what the government tells you to use it for. And they are going to check on you to see that you did said project. So we have not chosen that route. We've purposely shied away from that. Our biggest issue with that is really we do everything above board. We do everything that we're required to do. But I don't want government agents, G-men coming onto the property. I don't need them here. That's not something that I want in my life. And so that's what we've decided we are not going to do. So we won't take any grants. So we won't take free government money. But it is an option that may be available to you in certain circumstances. All right, I lost my cursor. That's probably not a good thing. Huh? Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, so the last of the 3 different funding options that you're going to have is probably fairly straightforward and obvious, but it's cash. By far the lowest risk of everything that we are talking about here today is cash. We are going to talk a little bit about this more in detail because most of what we do here has been in cash, but it is the lowest risk. And with the exception of my investments when it comes to my retirement accounts, I'm a fan of zero to no risk. I just really don't like a lot of risk in my life. Especially when it comes to finances, I have a tendency to be pretty conservative. Again, outside of retirement investments, those it's the opposite. But when it comes to the rest of it, I'm very conservative, and this is by far the lowest risk, and so it's what we've done most of is cash. So a couple other things to keep in mind with cash: control. So you control what and when to spend all of your funds. So there's nobody that's going to tell you what to do with your own cash. So that's the beauty of cash, is you decide what you want to spend it on, you decide when you want to spend it, and how much you want to spend. So that's completely under your control when it comes to cash. Next thing would be unlimited amount. So there's a caveat to that. Obviously, it's based on what you can save or afford, but there's not a cap on that. So you can literally make the Taj Mahal of everything. In fact, we talk about the Taj Mahal. Our pole barn that we just did this year is the most expensive capital expense that we have ever done on the farm. And it still hurts my heart when I see it, knowing how much money we put into that. But we had the choice to do it. So it took us several years to save to do it. But we chose how much we wanted to spend. So there wasn't a limit there. And it almost seems like it's limitless is how much money we're putting in it. So with cash, probably the biggest drawback is it takes time to save. So unless you're rich, which there's a nasty rumor that was floating out there years ago. I haven't heard it recently, but how many times have we had people comment to us say, must be nice to be rich?
Must be nice to have pockets full of money.
Pockets full of endless money.
Nice yeah.
It's funny because it's definitely not. And, we've shared our history. Both of us, neither one of us grew up with means. We didn't. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. You grew up in Phoenix, sometimes little seedier areas of Phoenix.
Yeah.
And so, that has not been the case. And, we were in retail I was there for 21 years. So, I mean, on good years, we were making, $50,000 to $60,000, which is not bad, but it's not fantastic, and you're raising a family, that doesn't go far.
Yeah.
But and then cost, of course, it's balanced because you don't have an interest expense, but it is all your funds. So unlike the grant where it's somebody else's funds, cash is your funds. So it's not the most expensive because you don't have an interest expense, but it's not the least expensive because it is all your money. And so unless somebody is giving you money, it's all yours. So those are the 3 main categories that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. If you guys want, you can email us. I can forward you any of the materials that we cover in this series as we continue to expand this series for farm finance. But these are the 3 primary funding routes that I am aware of when it comes to a farm startup or a homestead startup, or just a backyard garden or an orchard or however small or large you want to make it. So I think, in my opinion, if you were to take a balanced approach, you might take all of these. And I had mentioned already that we've leveraged debt and we have used cash. We've done both of those. The only thing we have not done is we have not taken any grants, and I don't anticipate ever doing that. Only because I don't need the government involved any more than they're already going to be. You'll find this if you guys are going to start some type of farming venture, that the government's going to wind up getting involved in your business. And so, and it has with ours. And so I just simply want to limit that.
Yeah.
So we want that only when on our terms, and we don't need to add additional as far as that's concerned. And I don't want anybody telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. So I don't know that any of us really do. I'm a fairly independent person. So is Lori, and neither one of us like being told what to do. So that definitely takes that out of there. When you're talking about debt, there's an aspect to that as well, which is another reason why I'm not a big fan of debt. And I don't know whether we've shared it or not, but we've been following Dave Ramsey since 1999. So it's been 26 years. Goodness gracious. I know. Almost as long as he's been on. I think he's been on for 30 years.
Wow.
So, but we've been following him for a long time, and we have been completely out of debt since 2007 with a couple of exceptions. And the farms are the exceptions. So wanted to share that with you guys. So when we first started the old farm in 2014, we decided that we sold our house in the city, and we could have paid cash for that house, and we decided to hang on to a bit of cash to start the farm. Mm-hmm. We did want to pay down on the house as quickly as we could, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough cash to kind of get everything going. And I think I mentioned that we had a HELOC on that home. I don't remember whether or not we actually pulled anything out. We did use it for the initial purchase of land, though, when we were living in the city. So the very first bit of land that we purchased in Waddell, we did use a HELOC for that. So we did actually leverage debt for that to start. Even though we probably had enough cash to buy it, it would have been really tight. So we did leverage a HELOC for that first purchase. That fell through. We wound up selling that, and we bought the home. And you guys have seen that with the old shots of the old farm. So the old farm, we had a mortgage for the first, I think, year or two. And then we used the cash that we had on hand that we didn't put into the home in order to buy all the fruit trees. We had irrigation we needed to put in. So there was a fair amount of upfront expense. And thankfully we started the business, so we were able to go back, and some of those became capital expenses that we carried into the farming business after a year or two. So, and we can talk more about that aspect of the farm finance, just not today. So I really kind of want to focus on these today. But when it came to funding, we had a mortgage here as well. So when we moved into this place, we sold the old farm, and we could have paid this house off, or at least gotten really close to it. But we decided that we wanted to retain some of those funds in order to start this farm, because that was very, very capital intense. Mm-hmm. Very capital intense, because we had a lot of irrigation alone was over 10 grand. I don't remember what the exact number was, but irrigation was over $10,000. A lot of fruit trees. Thankfully, a lot of it came from Reed, and we were on contract with Reed. So I think we didn't pay a lot for each one of those trees.
Well, a lot of those were cuttings from the old farm too, mm-hmm. that he propagated for us.
Right, and he already knew at that point that we were big fans of his nursery. We still are. We send a lot of business his way. He was aware of all that stuff. So in the end, it didn't cost as much as it would today. That's for sure. But still an expense. We had the tractor. We had the outbuilding. Those were probably our two biggest expenses that are both capital expenses. So all these things are capital expenses on our business account, or for our business. And a lot of these are still amortized, meaning we're still taking deductions each year. It's reducing our taxable income because they're capital expenses. And so, but those are all things we still had to pay for up front. So mm-hmm. Yes, you can take deductions over time, but you still have to pay for them up front. You still have to find the cash somewhere. And the farm wasn't generating much of an income. The only thing at that point we were selling a few chickens. We were selling a couple pigs a year, and we were selling some eggs, a handful of eggs.
And we had YouTube.
And YouTube, right. So, and again, future, we're going to talk a little bit about the breakdown as far as some of those ventures are concerned and how much income comes from each. That's not today. But we did have some from YouTube as well, which has gone down year after year.
Every year it's gone down, even though the subscriber number goes up.
Yep. So that's another discussion for another day. I'm thankful for it still, but either way. Yeah. So, but the income was very limited. So since then we've added different enterprises, we've been able to increase the revenue and the profit with all the different things that we do as a farm. And we've been saving over the last few years. We've had some retained earnings that we're retaining all the earnings in the business, and we utilize those for the pole barn build. So been saving for the last few years for that, which is why you guys haven't seen a lot of big changes up until the pole barn, because
we needed to save some money.
We had to save some money, and we did commit to ourselves that once the farming business was profitable, which it has been for the last few years, we would not put any more of our own capital into the farm to sustain it. So the farm has to be self-sustaining. So it doesn't need to sustain us, but it needs to sustain itself. And it doesn't sustain us by any means.
We don't take an income from the farm at all for personal.
No, and it wouldn't be much anyway, but it paid for a pole barn.
Yeah, it all goes back into the business.
Yeah, so over the last few years, it paid for a $60,000. Well, not all of it from the last few years. We had this year's income as well that's been paying for it as well. But either way, we were able to save for that. So we did it with back to cash. And so of those three fundings, we talked about that. So you have debt, you have grants, and you have cash. Lots of pros and cons in there with all three. We've leveraged debt and we have utilized cash. Our preference is cash. It's what we do almost everything with, but we have leveraged some debt, which is definitely not Dave Ramsey-ish. So I suppose we were Dave Ramsey-ish for the last few years. But
we're back on it.
We're back on it.
Yeah, got our house paid off.
We finally got it all. Yeah, got the house paid off, but got us back on track. So, but either way, so I'm sure there's probably some questions. We can definitely answer those. It doesn't have to be finance related, but if it is, I can definitely do that. So Misko, if you're still here, hopefully you're back with us because we've got snacks today that are yours. Okay. Do we have any questions?
Well, Kevin had asked a question, but I think you had already actually answered it. So you rolled profits from prior properties to use to start up the current farm.
Correct. We've always sold our homes. We don't own any of our old homes. So we've owned 3 homes in our lifetime.
Each one got paid off. So when we sold it,
we've paid off 3 houses. Only because we had a loan on all 3. Not because we had the entire thing. Because we paid off our first home in 2007. And then we started, prior to that, we started saving for the farm, not knowing that's what it was for. But I'd like to tell folks that we basically started saving for the farm 15 years before we even knew that, before it was a gleam in our eye. We were saving for it, not knowing. So.
You guys need to do a show where you drink your wine and leverage trade Bitcoin.
I don't know about that. I never sell my Bitcoin. I always hold it. I'm hodling Bitcoin. That's all I do. I never sell it.
He is hoarding Bitcoin.
Hodling. We like to call it hodling. You'll learn this. You're still learning it.
I'm still learning, yeah. Drilling the well was a large expense.
It was. Now, to clarify the well, you're right. But the well was actually part of our mortgage. So that was actually because it services the home, even though obviously a much bigger tank than you would typically have on just a home. It's about twice as big as a normal size tank. So if we were not doing all the things we're doing, we would have a 2,500 gallon tank. In fact, our neighbors across the street share. I think they have a 2,500 gallon tank.
They do. It's 25. Yep. 2,500, and there's 5 houses on that.
Right, and I think the old farm had a 2,500 gallon tank, and there were 5 houses on that as well.
Correct.
So, but that was only about a $2,000 difference. So, so that wasn't a massive difference. So, but yeah, the well was actually part of the construction loan, which rolled into the mortgage. So that became part of the mortgage. What else?
That's it.
Really? We answered all the questions?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think they were listening to you talk and not get confused.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Well, we got snacks. So, if you guys have any questions, so we're here still. But Misko, I don't know whether you're here or not. So Misko's from Slovakia. Is he there? I can't tell. Say hi.
Yep, he's here.
Misko, say hi.
I have to go back to it tomorrow with translator.
Oh, okay,
I'm not very good with finance.
So yeah, Misko's from Slovakia, and these are actually from him. So this is what is this? Mixitka. Mixitka? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that. But tell me if I'm pronouncing that right, Misko. So Mixitka, it's a cherry and almond. I think we finally did actually find the nutrition facts here, and it's got a lot of sugar in there. I think it's because it's got real fruit. Either way, I'm going to give it a shot. So,
I'm going to read Bowtie.
Cherry and almond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Said that we had to drill 2 wells in Arkansas. The first one, the drill hit at a 75-foot tall cave.
Oh.
So we dropped 220 feet of metal sleeve, then drilled to 472 feet, and the earth nearly ate the drill.
Oh my goodness. Really? In Arkansas?
Yeah.
I would have never. This is fantastic.
The well that worked was 915 feet.
Oh my goodness.
Textbook rock all the way. And he said Mixitka.
Oh yeah, Mixitka. Good. It's very sweet.
I hope I said that right.
Tangy. You can definitely taste the cherry. Tangy and sweet. Gotta be a good amount of fiber. Oh,
Cynthia, we moved into our current home 3 years ago, irrigation property. I planted oops, it looks like it cut off.
Irrigated property?
Yeah.
So I think maybe to step back real quick, I do want to cover a couple of a few of the larger expenses. So the largest expense prior to the pole barn. The pole barn has been our largest expense. It was also the first major capital expense that the farm paid for itself, which is what we were shooting for. And did it suck up all of those profits? But either way, it was the largest. Prior to that, we had the outbuilding, and the outbuilding was actually pretty darn close to that, which obviously fully enclosed. It is a little bit smaller. When we did the extension, which was another capital expense, I forget what the extension was. Were the extension like $8,000 or $10,000?
I don't remember.
Something like that.
But the farm paid for that.
Yeah, the farm paid for that as well. So we've had some capital expenses that have kind of gone in there at the same time. But what it's done, because I still work off the farm full time, is it allowed us to focus the income that I have on paying off the home. Because we've if you guys, I don't know if anybody out there has their home paid off, let us know in the comment section. I want to hear from you and why. So for us, the why was Dave Ramsey. That really was what drove that. And again, like I said, we paid off 3 different houses consecutively. So as we lived in them, we paid them off and then we sold them. And we've always rolled that back into a new home, which is what most people do. But I think this was probably the only real exception where we didn't do that right away, because we took a portion of what we made on the old farm and put it into the farm here. But those first capital expenses, so the outbuilding, the tractor, we needed the outbuilding in order to get the tractor. You guys know ground squirrels here would destroy our tractor. We don't want that outside. So the tractor, we have a little ride-on tractor. Those were our biggest ones. And then irrigation. Fencing probably wasn't too bad. The chicken coop and run. So we had that professionally installed, and we had the first. Well, we had it extended, but we had the metal fencing at the front of the farm. If you guys have seen the beginning of our videos, we have there's a 2-rail white fencing in the front. That's actually solid steel. So that's a 4-foot steel tubing that we installed up there. That will eventually get a lot more traffic than it does today, and I just wanted to make sure if somebody wants to play bumper cars, they're going to not be happy, because that's a solid metal fence that they're going to be bouncing.
It's not
against.
the plastic resin.
No. And so that was a fairly big expense that we took on right up front. But everything outside of the house is a business expense, because it is a legitimate farm expense. So those are all capital expenses that have been amortized on our tax returns here over the years. So we've been able to reduce the taxable income for the farm and our overall taxable income. So the beauty of that, if you guys understand how that works, is our actual taxable profits are fairly low. We do have a positive profit. We have for the last 3 years. We should this year as well, but it's not all that big. And that's Lori's entire income is actually the farm income, and she gets half of it. Is the way it works with our tax return. So it's not a whole lot of money, but we actually make a lot more than that. That's just not taxed. And so we're able to hold those funds aside and use them for capital expenses, because back to whenever we're funding anything on the farm, we're not doing it with debt. So the only thing that I would say about that, to be full disclosure, is we do use a business credit card for our everyday expenses to get our 1% back, and then that's paid off every month. So we don't carry a balance. So there's no interest expense. So buying feed, small tools and equipment, paying for, insurance and our phone and things like that. All of those are on a credit card that gets paid off every month. So so we utilize it for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have that. So the farm wouldn't have any debt at all. So I suppose the question ultimately would be is at what point would we at all consider taking on debt for the farm? And I don't think I would. Mm-hmm. Again, back to the risk involved with it. I just don't want to have the risk and also the cost. So whenever you're taking out debt, you're adding additional cost in interest expense. So, I'm just not interested in doing that. It's less expensive to pay cash. And like Dave Ramsey said, you go with the speed of cash. That's completely true. We could have had the pole barn, probably actually needed the pole barn a few years ago when we started raising 20 pigs a year. We've done that now as our third season or fourth season with that many pigs. And, they need a lot of shade and they need a cool environment, and they destroy the ground if you're putting in, big wallows and whatnot for them when they're hot. So, and then of course, just the protection of the goats and the comfort now of the dogs and all these other things, but we didn't have the money to do it. So, we worked with temporary enclosures and temporary infrastructure, and we still do. Mm-hmm. We have temporary infrastructure for basically all the birds except for our primary laying flock.
Yeah. So
they're in the original coop and run, and we have the rest of the birds in temporary enclosures, basically. Our Thanksgiving turkeys, we just posted an update on that today, just a few moments ago on Instagram. And that you see a quick video their first time out. They get to see the pasture. They're not in it yet because it's not ready for them yet. But that's all temporary. So all that can literally come down, and that can get turned back into just flat desert ground very, very rapidly. So we still focus a lot on temporary enclosures and things that are a lot less expensive. The other one that was a capital expense was the grapevines, only because of the T-posts and all the equipment. It was only maybe $1,000, $1,500. It wasn't too expensive, but our accountant, we use H&R Block, so they're a $500 kind of, they draw a line in the sand at $500. So if it's over $500, they consider it a capital expense with basically no exception. If it's less than $500, it's an expense we can take right away, generally speaking. So, anyways, any other questions?
I'm just going to go through some questions, comments. Mm-hmm. So Cynthia, we moved on to our current home 3 years ago, irrigation lot. I planted a 3-in-1 plum tree. Now hubby wants to move and I want to take the tree with me. Chances of it living if I dig it up and take to our new non-irrigation lot or property.
Well, first of all, bummer that you're losing the irrigated property. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it. We were just talking about this recently, how much we would love that for a pasture, because you can actually have one, and we would actually start raising the cattle ourselves. So we have got a friend of ours that does it for us. He's down in Buckeye. He has an irrigated lot, so he's got a nice 10-acre pasture. So we can't. But back to your question. So generally speaking, most trees will transplant and they're going to be just fine, especially trees that are on a rootstock, at least in our experience, only because the roots tend to be a little more compact because you're dealing with a rootstock. The biggest thing would be you want to try to bring as many of the roots with you as you can and as much of the soil with you as you can. Now, we've had almost 100% success with transplanting trees here. Mm-hmm. We transplanted successfully an apple tree on the old farm. Actually, several trees. Remember in that middle row where the pigs were? I think we transplanted 4 trees. All of them survived. We transplanted the honey mandarin. That was on an end cap at the old farm. We transplanted that. We've had success transplanting a lot. The bay leaf, we transplanted the bay leaf.
I think the biggest thing is, how old and how big is the tree.
Right, because the advantage to a bigger tree is you're going to be able to take more roots with you. The disadvantage is it's harder to move.
Yeah.
So I don't know how big it is.
Big.
But you want to try to take as many roots as you can, okay? And you want to try to take as much of the soil as you can, if possible. But it's not required because, again, assuming it's on a rootstock, your stone fruit can be shipped across the country bare root in the middle of the dormant season. So you don't necessarily need to take the soil with you. You can basically turn it into a bare root tree as long as it's fully dormant. So the challenge that we have here in Arizona is sometimes trees don't go fully dormant on their own.
Yeah.
So that would be the only challenge. But you want to make sure you do that during the dormant season. And again, bring as much of the soil and root ball as you can. Okay, if you're going to pot it, get the largest pot that you can and put it into that pot and do all of this during the dormant season. If you do it during the growing season, you'll have a much better chance that it will not survive.
Yeah.
So you want to try that as best you can. May not be reality for you depending on when you sell your home and buy the new one, but you want to try to do it during the dormant season.
So Sandra said yes because I wanted to retire as far as paying the house off. Kevin,
cool.
House paid off in 3 months, a goal for me to have prior to retiring.
Very good. Congratulations. Is that Kevin Spence?
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations, Kevin.
We lived 10 years in Arkansas with no debt. It was a dream. And then so...
Bowtie, by the way, is David, FYI.
Oh, okay.
We'll call him Bowtie.
So where the 25 or so cruises we went on and lived in Europe twice during that time.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm liking that.
Dave
Ramsey says you want to live like nobody else, so later you can live like nobody else. And that is absolutely true. We've known that to be true in our lives.
Yeah.
So in everything that you see here, guys, we would not have been able to do it without that. So not the way we wanted to do it. We gave you guys some options today for doing it other ways, but how we wanted to do it and felt comfortable doing it, we wouldn't have. So.
Dwayne Ramsey speaks the truth.
Amen to that.
Emily paid cash for this home after living in a different home in New England for 19 years.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Selling it at a big profit in 2007. Also, I moved to South Carolina to a much lower cost of living.
Man, was that perfect timing or what?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay.
Good.
We are total Ramseyites.
I had a feeling there was a few of us out there.
We did the baby steps for 2 years and changed our lives. Do you get more income for the work selling food or plants?
We get more total profit and revenue on selling food. But we probably so the profit margin is much higher on plants. With the exception of our trees, and we're going to change that a little bit probably because we had Chris propagate all these for us first. And so obviously, he got a good chunk of that because we just wanted to see whether or not it was going to be worth it. So that profit margin will go up here a bit as we expand that ourselves now. But plants, you make a lot more profit margin on plants. But you make a lot more dollars, especially on larger animals. It's percentages, right? So if we make 10% on beef, it's the same. These animals are a few $1,000s, right? So you're making a few $100s on that versus a plant. It may only cost you 20 cents and you sell it for $5, but you just made $4, right? So, and there was quite a bit of work involved, but there's a good amount of work involved. It's a balance, it's a trade-off. But the produce itself. Now, I will say, we just started selling fruit this year. So when we get into fruit, depending on kind of how we do some of that, the fruit will have a very, very high profit margin. Very, very high, especially with U-pick operations because we're not going to bring the container. You're going to bring your own container. So we might provide bags, but other than that, the costs are very, very minimal. And so the profit margins are very high. And the profit dollars will be pretty good too, depending on how much is produced. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Who are you buying Bitcoin from?
I have no idea because it's through an exchange, but so that's the technical term. But right now we're buying it through Strike. So we're using Strike because we're buying it weekly. So we're buying it every single week. Same day I get paid, we buy Bitcoin. And so that's just a way for us to DCA into Bitcoin. And so every Thursday, it happens at 8:00. So, every Thursday, I'm happy either way. So either I'm happy because Bitcoin went down and I got more sats, or I'm happy because the total amount went up. That's the way I look at it. So, and that's obviously a long-term thing for us. We're committed to that. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing right now. In the past, I've used Coinbase. So Coinbase is just a little more expensive. So a little less expensive to do it through Strike. So, yeah. Before I forget, Misko, I've got this creme brulee. So we're still on the Slovakian snacks here. I want to try this, though. This is a double chocolate. So if there's a question, ask that while I'm opening this package.
For you, Pig, do you need to increase your insurance to cover people on site?
Yes. And so we actually...
ton of insurance.
We do. So we did... here, I'm going to take a bite of this real quick.
That's Candace.
Oh, yeah. I do want to talk about that. Oh, how can you go wrong with double chocolate? Can tell there's fiber in there. I'm a fan. Always want some fiber. As I get older, I'm happier and happier with fiber.
That tastes like a dessert.
That is a dessert. We'll save the rest of that for dessert. Okay, excuse me. Sorry about that.
He said double chocolate is best.
Oh, yeah.
That is really good.
That is fantastic.
That literally tastes like a chocolate dessert.
It does. I was trying to figure out what last week's tasted like. It was that strawberry one. It tastes like a Nutri-Grain bar. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, okay, what was the question? Sorry.
For you, Pig, do you need to increase your insurance to cover people on site?
Right. So we have... So we started carrying insurance a few years ago. So we actually... It was prior to UPIC because we really only kind of started the UPIC this year. We were trying to figure out how to market it. So we've got a pretty good idea of how we're going to market it starting next year because we can't have a bunch of people coming at once. We don't have enough capacity for that. We don't have enough trees for that, enough produce for that. We figured out a way that we can kind of control that. But to your question, yes. And actually, it wasn't necessarily for the UPIC because we do processing workshops here. That's really what drove it is, we got people with knives cutting open chickens. So, I was more concerned with that. So, and so when we had our first visit from the insurance folks, which we actually use the Farm Bureau here in Arizona, and that we found that was the best route for us to go cost wise because it's not nearly as it's still expensive, but not nearly as expensive as the other quotes we were getting because they know the farming business, so they know what we do.
Yeah.
And so they had an adjuster. It's probably not the right word for the lady who came out.
Our agent and I can't remember what her title was, but they both came out.
Right. I'm just going to call her an adjuster because I don't know I don't know what her title was. Either way. So she came out. We were talking about all the different things that we do on the farm. And what she wanted to know is she focused on the processing, right? So the on-farm chicken processing.
Her biggest focus was the processing workshop. So she had to see all of our equipment. She had to see how we set it all up, where we were doing it at, and everything.
Right. So that was the biggest concern there. And then of course, twice a year we got pushing a couple hundred people all walking around on the property. And so, we've got a lot of folks here other than the UPIC. So the UPIC's actually not going to be our biggest concern. But the concern is still there. You have somebody that's, hopefully not climbing up in a tree, but I would not be shocked to see a kid climbing up in a tree. And, the last thing I need is a kid to fall, break his arm, even though we told you not to, and everybody figures that's my fault. So, we're an LLC, so we've got some protections there too, but at the same time, that's just a reality. So, unfortunately, it's an unfortunate reality. We do have insurance specifically for situations like that. So, and the UPIC is part of it. And then we have, in fact, they'll be out here probably next month to see it. They'll see the pole barn, which has to be added into it. So it's gonna get even more expensive.
Go up again. Well, this is Candace. She got maple. So Candace, Savannah Farms, I think is yours. But she's got a lot of fruit trees there. So I'm guessing you're wanting to do UPIC, or maybe you already do UPIC. But we do have a lot of insurance on the property.
Yeah.
And then Pam said that she goes to a local citrus farm and they charge $10 a bag. It's those red mesh bags. She had brought one last time she came out.
Okay. Yep.
Is there a limit on any amount of liquors you could produce from your crops without a lot of government involvement?
Liquor?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't sell any of our. We make wine, but we don't sell it.
Yeah.
So we don't sell any of that. So we give some of that away. So and we use it mainly for marketing. That's really kind of what the whole wine thing is. So you guys, we've done a lot of content here on YouTube. The greater part about YouTube is you get legitimate business expenses where, you have to buy something for a video or whatever, and you get paid for it. So that's one of the cool parts about that. But that's a legitimate marketing expense for us. So, which is kind of nice because we enjoy doing it. Every once in a while, a little bit falls out of a bottle and stays in the house. But it's mainly a marketing expense. So the majority of that winds up being given away. Yep. We don't sell it. So could we? Yes. Back to, I don't know if you were here for our breakdown as far as funding, but grants and the government not wanting them here. Yeah, I really not interested at all with the ATF being on the farm.
Involving them at all. No.
No, I'll pass.
Yep.
Let's just give you absolutely no reason to ever be here. You don't need to be here. So.
Yeah. We try to put everything through the farm as a business expense.
Yeah, everything we can.
Yeah,
everything we can. I will tell you, this is the only, I've run businesses for other people, but this is the first business that we've run ourselves. And we were very proud of the fact that it's been successful and all these other things. So we're proud of that. But both of us have run businesses before. So it's really not too surprising, I suppose. Although sometimes I still pinch myself to say, I get to do this, get paid, and yeah, it's my life. And but it's one of the challenges we've actually had, back to insurance. So it's one of the challenges we had when we were trying to find insurance. We had to switch all of our insurance over to the Farm Bureau, not because we wanted to, not because it was the best price. It was none of that. It's because we could not separate from an insurance standpoint. They could not separate the home from the farm. So we have a higher expense on our insurance for our home because they can't separate the two because they're so intertwined. It makes sense. We're sitting in the house now. We're having everything that's in this office is all a business expense. Part of that is because it's YouTube, right? So we get paid for this. Not very much. Pam's going to basically fund this entire thing with her $5. So thank you, Pam. But the reality is it is all expenses. It's inside the home. So it's very, very hard to separate. You really can't separate the home from the farm. So we had to combine the two. It's a higher insurance expense because of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of expenses in our life that are legitimate business expenses because they're farm expenses. But it's our life, right?
Yeah.
So it's our day-to-day that's an actual legitimate business expense. And we always filter that. So when we're coming up against, when we're going to buy something, we ask ourselves, can we use this or will we use this for the farm? If the answer is yes, it's a business expense. So, and it's amazing how much of that can go into the farm. It's a pretty significant number of things. So,
okay, so several questions, and we're getting close to time here, so might go a little
Speed
over. Round. But property we're looking at is in Santan Valley area, is sandy, small rocks. How can I make that soil more fertile?
Like like how far down is the sand going? You in a wash? That's interesting. Well, I wouldn't be too concerned. People still grow things in Florida, which is very, very sandy. We got, I don't know whether Kevin is still here or not, but he's in Vegas. He has very sandy soil as well, and he does just fine. You've seen videos. In fact, we got one of his videos posted of all the trees that he's growing in his backyard, and it's pretty much sandy soil. So yeah, you're going to do just fine. The difference is it's going to absorb a lot more water, so you have to be cautious of that. But some of the things still cross over, like mulch, for example. You need heavy mulch. That helps to hold some of that moisture in place, right? The mulch will, as opposed to the sand that drops it. But at the same time, you won't have trees that are sitting, in caliche. So hopefully, possibly, maybe you don't have a caliche layer. If that's the case, all of a sudden roots can go down where they can't here. So, but I think what it narrows down to is you may need to do a little bit more amendments than we do here if you don't have any clay content in there, because you are going to need some of that or want some of that. Better for the trees and rootstocks. So the rootstocks you're going to find here are really designed for Arizona soil, which is not sand. So not that they can't thrive in that, they can, but it's not designed for it. So so you may need to do a little more amendment than you see us doing here.
Do you guys grow anything indoors with windows or grow lights?
No, absolutely nothing. So we tried grow lights in starts and failed miserably, like really bad at it. So more on this. You guys will see. It's kind of a sneak preview of a little bit of things that are going to be going on and shifting with the nursery. So more on that here soon. What else?
Do you use to go for a longer hike sometimes? Do you like hiking, or is it not possible due to busy schedules?
Really,
I walk enough on my property that I don't need to go for any hikes.
It's funny. We both have hiking shoes. We are on the farm in hiking shoes. It's funny you asked that question. I'm not a hiker. So I've had a bad knee from a hockey accident. Injury. Accident's not right. It wasn't. Well, it was an accident, but it was yeah. Either way, ice hockey injury. But so that knee is always stopped. Downhill's a problem for me, and so we use hiking shoes every single day on the farm.
Yep.
That is literally what we use on the farm.
Yep.
So yeah.
Off topic, 2 years ago I planted a Granny Smith apple tree. It is now 5 feet tall and has 4 apples. I've always watered with the garden hose and sprinkler system. 6 weeks ago I started deep watering.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I'm not sure what the question is. Oh, roughly 30 to 40 gallons twice a week. 2 weeks ago I noticed the leaves wilted and curved. Mm-hmm. 5 days later, they were completely dry. Any idea what went wrong?
Oh, wow! Something's going on in the soil potentially. Because if they're dry, that would be an indicator of not enough water. You said 5 feet tall. We're putting 60 gallons twice a week, so it may not be enough water. It's possible. It's either that or there's something going on with the soil. I don't know what rootstock you have. It's a Granny Smith. So yeah, you didn't get it from Reed at RSI Growers. It could be a rootstock issue. That's possible. In fact, we're taking notes on a video we're going to do for you guys that I think you're going to enjoy. You may not, because it's going to talk a little bit about planting mistakes or mistakes in general. So, planting depth, getting that, not having a root crown shut. There's so many things that it can be. So do me a favor, because we're running out of time here. Email us. You can message us through our. You can go to Instagram or Facebook or go to our website. You'll find our email on there. It's not hard to find, but email us a picture of that, a picture of the tree and the surrounding area. I want to see that.
Do you guys have any mosquitoes on the farm?
Very few. So the only time we get mosquitoes on the farm is when we get a heavy rain event that drops half an inch to an inch, and there's some back-to-back. We've had mosquitoes for 1 week this year.
Have you tried solar energy?
Yes, I won't ever do it again, at least for the time being. At least not on a large scale, so not for the house. So would we do it in certain areas? Maybe, but for a whole home, absolutely not. We're not there yet, unfortunately, in my opinion. Just an opinion, but yes.
And if you want more on that, you have to wait until next week.
Anything else? We did go a little bit over today.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, cool. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us today. This was the Desert Farmer Podcast, episode 68. As a reminder, the most valuable thing we have here on the planet is time, and you guys choose to spend that with us. This is one of our ways of giving back to you. Please send us your questions. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of us a lot of ways. Instagram, Facebook. You've got our YouTube here. You can make comments here. You have our website. You can go there. You have TikTok now, so you can even comment there at TikTok. So there's a lot of ways to get a hold of us. Lori's phone number all over the internet, and you can text her if you want to. But please send in your questions. We want to make sure this content is geared around you guys, and it is things you want to know about. So if you want to know more about finance, you can let us know that. If there's something else, let us know that. But you guys drive this. And remember, we are here every Saturday at 2 o'clock Arizona time. We don't change time. So pay attention to that here in the next month or two. But 2 o'clock Arizona time here for the Desert Farmer Podcast. And until next Saturday at 2 o'clock, just want to remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere,
so can you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.